Why July 2025 jobs report could signal U.S. recession soon. Shockwaves rippled through the economic world last Friday, not just because of the numbers, but because of what they could mean next. The July jobs report, which reportedly infuriated former President Donald Trump to the point of firing the very commissioner responsible for compiling it, has set off alarm bells among economists. You might not hear a siren blaring, but there's a crucial signal flashing underneath the headlines. America's job market is raising the specter of recession once more. Here's where it gets controversial. For the first time in months, respected experts are cautiously uttering the word recession in response to new data. Why? Over the last quarter, hiring has plummeted at a pace that has only occurred during downturns in U.S. history. Think back as far as the late 1960s. As fresh employment figures for May and June poured in, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, realized they had to slash previous job growth estimates by a jaw-dropping 258,000 positions. Imagine the challenge for the BLS staff. They rely on thousands of businesses reporting accurate numbers, but when those figures change and require sizable corrections, it suggests deeper weaknesses in the foundation of the economy. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, once the director of the Congressional Budget Office under President George W. Bush, did not mince words. The job market is terrible. Except for gains in education and health, the private sector actually lost jobs over the past 3 months. That's alarming. But is the doom justified? Let's look at the bigger picture. So far this year, job creation has clocked in at about 85,000 new positions a month, far below the 177,000 average before the pandemic hit. Simply put, fewer people are finding work, but that alone does not guarantee we're tipping into a recession. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, the independent group officially responsible for determining when recessions begin or end, a handful of key indicators must decline: consumer spending, income, factory output, and employment. Until Friday, none had convincingly signaled a downturn, and this is the part most people miss. Even though July's jobs report rings alarm bells, several caveats remain. For example, sluggish job growth may reflect business uncertainty surrounding Trump's tariffs, a policy intended to protect American workers, which has become a lightning rod for debate. It's simply too soon to know if this drop is a passing blip or the start of something bleaker. Keith Lerner, co-chief investment officer at Truist, offers a stark assessment. The U.S. economy is muddling through. He believes that with job growth slowing, the Federal Reserve may now be behind the curve in holding interest rates steady and could be forced to pivot soon in favor of rate cuts. The Fed has been watching this hiring slowdown unfold for months, but the steep tumble in recent figures was likely not fully priced into their latest decisions. Robert Mugurello, chief investment officer at Brave Eagle Wealth Management, adds a twist. Just because last week's report looked recessionary doesn't mean we're in a recession. But it's clear businesses are pausing hiring and holding off on layoffs as they wait for greater policy certainty. Here comes the contentious twist. The very tariffs that gave the Fed pause about cutting rates, worried they'd push prices up, in fact, may be a key culprit in the hiring freeze. Initially, Trump's policies made it seem the economy was sturdy enough to weather interest rate hikes. But now, many businesses are acting preemptively, scaling back hiring and investment out of concern that tariffs will squeeze their bottom lines. Chris Rupke, chief economist at Ford Bonds, puts it plainly. You can't count on the job market to support economic growth anymore. Businesses have started to actively cut back. There's another point that's guaranteed to spark fierce debate: immigration. Since April, 1.4 million people have left the U.S. labor force, and more than half of them were foreign-born. Could Trump's hardline immigration stance be thinning the ranks of available workers? Here's something most people overlook. These labor shortages may make the jobs numbers look artificially strong. If the 503,000 who left the workforce but wished to keep working had reported to the BLS that they were job hunting, the unemployment rate last month would have spiked to 4.5% instead of the reported 4.2%, according to Rupke. Is this a hidden crisis or just a structural adjustment? Now, about those huge data revisions, another nerve-jangling topic. While the scale of the corrections is undeniably striking, top analysts say they broadly fit with what other indicators have been telegraphing. Jan Hatzius, a leading economist at Goldman Sachs, explains that all recent data taken together confirms a slowdown. The U.S. economy is expanding at a rate below its long-term potential. Bank of America described the revisions as undeniably concerning, but saw a small silver lining. Much of the adjustment was tied to seasonal factors, essentially the statistical tweaks that try to smooth out short-term hiring and layoff cycles. Remember, the BLS's job numbers are preliminary at first, since not all businesses submit their payroll figures on time. As more data filters in, it's normal for the agency to update its findings, sometimes drastically. They use complex algorithms to estimate national trends and apply what are called seasonal adjustments to avoid distortions from holiday hiring or school schedules. When actual data comes in much stronger or weaker than initial predictions, these adjustments can amplify the impact of the revisions. With this latest overhaul, BLS officials now have a more accurate, albeit worrisome, snapshot of the labor market, one that reflects much more sluggish hiring. Looking forward, future corrections should be smaller, assuming survey responses stabilize and the true state of hiring is better reflected. But here's the real controversy. Are these numbers the canary in the coal mine for another U.S. recession, or just noisy data that's being overinterpreted? Do tariffs and tough immigration rules help or hurt the everyday worker? Should the Federal Reserve act fast to cut rates, or does that risk fanning inflation? We want to hear from you. Do you think the doom and gloom is justified, or is this just a storm that will soon pass? Drop your thoughts below. Let the debate begin.